I want to talk a little bit about how to create your superhero story. And the first question some of you might have is like, well, I don't know about that. I don't know if that applies to me because I don't feel like much of a superhero. And guess what? I get it. I get it. None of us feel like a superhero all the time. That's totally normal. But I hope that over the next couple of minutes, we can just dream together and kind of imagine some ways where we can pull out the diamonds, pull out the gems from our story. That's the key. I transitioned from being in the military where I wore the same uniform every day. I had to have my hair back in a bun every single day. I had a certain rank, all of these things. I went from being in the military to being a civilian. And that might sound like it's not a big deal, but for me, it was a really big deal. And I had to learn how to translate some of the things I did in the military. And if anybody knows anything about the military, there's a lot of acronyms, right? A lot of acronyms. So I had to learn how to translate the things I did in the military to resumes. And so when I applied to law school, for example, because I'm in law school, so I'm a person that's saying, hey, you're never too old to go back to school. I'm 36 and I'm in my second year of law school and I'm going strong. So sometimes we have to translate our story to language and to a picture that other people understand. This is just part of life. It's a part of communication. But to be honest with you, it's very difficult sometimes because we feel maybe inadequate or we feel like, I don't know if what I did means anything. Like I was in the military, but I never went overseas. I never went to Iraq and Afghanistan. And all these people have stereotypes about if you're in the military, you do these certain things. Well, I didn't do those things. And so I had to overcome some self-doubt that I had about my story. And I had to learn how to translate those things so that when I applied to law school, I could explain what I did during my 13 years, first at a military academy and then in the military. So the first thing in writing your superhero story is to realize that none of us start out as superheroes, okay? None of us start out with the cool story. We have to start somewhere, okay? And in that, I want to show you some pictures. So does anybody know who this guy is? Can any of you identify? Just unmute yourself. Tell me who this guy is. He's a famous actor now. He lives in Hawaii, not on a Kaua'i, but on another island, I believe. Anybody know who that is? This guy over here is The Rock. And so somebody said that, so good job. We know the reason I did this is because I want us to remember that we don't start out with the cool story. We start out where we are. So where are you? All of you live on Kaua'i, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So your story is unique. You may think, oh, well, like, I don't know if my life is that cool. I don't really know if anybody would find it interesting. You need to reject that because the truth is that you have a unique story and where you started matters. The fact that you live on Kaua'i is a very unique aspect of your story. And I want you to think about that as you're thinking about your hero story. Okay. So, and as you can see, can somebody else unmute? Who are some other heroes that we see on this page? Just call them out.
Like, is that Luke Skywalker over there?
Yes, that's Luke Skywalker. Anybody else? Don't be shy. Unmute.
Is that T'Challa or Black Panther?
Yes, it is. It exactly is. Yes. And personally, I just saw the movie Brave a couple of weeks ago, and it was so inspiring. I don't have beautiful red hair or blue eyes, but I still was inspired, and it was just a really cool story. So, and if some of you maybe have seen The Queen's Gambit, and it's the picture in the very center, this little like 8-year-old girl who's discovering the joy of chess. And so the cool thing about these heroes is that they all started in different places. They have unique stories and they have unique talents. They don't all have the same talent, just like all of us. So as we continue on this, I want you to think about, just take a minute here. I want you to think about a time when you took a leap of faith, a time when you felt very scared to do something, maybe even anxious, but you did it anyways. Those moments For most of us, we can name several moments like this, but those moments are the beginning of our superhero story. Those moments mark a transition from what's comfortable and what we know to something that's uncomfortable. And they're really powerful in crafting your story. So this is not something that you do over a span of minutes. This exercise is something that I encourage you to do throughout your life. And particularly take time, maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, but take time to write down in a journal or perhaps on a Word document or some sort of document that you can have, and write down those moments and those opportunities where you went from what you knew to what you didn't know. Maybe it's as simple as you didn't know y equals mx plus b. Isn't that an equation that you learn in algebra? Okay, good. Adriana, okay. Some people are nodding their heads. It's been a while since I've done algebra, but that was hard for me. I remember in like 9th or 10th grade having to figure out what that meant and the slope of a line. And maybe it's something like that where you figured out something in a math class. Or maybe it's like you read a book that was really thick that nobody you knew had read. It was like not the cool thing to do, but you did something different. You kind of like exercised your own choice. Maybe it's that you learned a new sport, that you decided to go out for a team you weren't really sure about and you were a little bit nervous about, but you did it anyways. Maybe it's that you signed up for a class that you weren't sure you could do, and all the smart kids were in it, and you weren't sure you were going to make the cut. Maybe you had a conversation with a family member. It was really difficult to have, but you needed to have it. Whatever that leap of faith is, they're important, and that's where your superhero story begins. So I'm just going to show you 2 more slides, and I'm going to be done very quickly. So in this journey, okay, we have these moments of comfortability where we have to make a step. Sometimes we have to make a leap where we go from the comfortable to the uncomfortable. Perhaps even joining the bridge has been a little uncomfortable. But as I'm hearing all these wonderful stories about the accomplishments that you all are achieving in the places you're going, what I'm finding is that it's worth it. I think it's worth it. And I recognize that sometimes it doesn't feel like it's worth it. But by you stepping out and doing something different, you are making a choice that's going to impact the rest of your life. And that matters. And you know what? The people on your college admissions board are going to want to know about that. But besides your essay, and we're going to have some people that are much more expert than I talk about that essay. But besides that, just for your own benefit, for your own self-confidence, I want you to embrace the moments where you have taken a leap of faith, because that's where we all become superheroes. This screen here represents this hero's journey that a man named Joseph Campbell talked about in a book written a couple decades ago. And by no means is he the absolute authority on this, but he gives an example of how we start off in our ordinary world. Step 2 is that we have a call to adventure. Most times we refuse the call. We're like, no, I don't want to do it. It's too scary. I can't do it. But then guess what? We made a mentor. And that's part of the reason that us mentors are here, is to help you along this journey, because we've been there too. We have been there and we want to help you. And then once you meet that mentor, you have to cross that threshold, the leap of faith we've been talking about. And after that, you're going to encounter obstacles. You're going to encounter people who don't like you being different. You're going to encounter people that you thought were friends. They don't like that you're studying extra hard or that you're going out for the team. They might resent you for it. But you know what? It's okay. You move along. And then you just keep persevering in the mission that you know you've been called to do. And sure enough, you're going to be able to become the superhero that you're meant to be. And this last slide here is kind of a cool slide because it shows the way that the hero's journey is actually lived out in some of our favorite movies like Harry Potter, Star Wars, The Matrix, Spider-Man, The Lion King, Lord of the Rings. Of course, there's many other beautiful and wonderful superhero movies, but this is just an example. So 2 things I want you to remember. 1 is that stepping out in faith matters. And two, you need to keep track of those things and recognize yourself when you do it so that you can really start to understand what you're meant to do.